When you're in your home, it should support your health and wellness, as well as be functional and aesthetically pleasing. Today's podcast guest, Matthew Tenzin, wants to take a holistic approach to interior design and include concepts of spirituality and energy to truly turn a house into a place that feels like home.
Welcome to the Creative Genius Podcast, Matthew. You've been with us before, but our listeners might not have heard that episode, so we're going to dive right in. So how did you become a designer? Tell us about that.
Well, hi, Gail. Thanks for having me back.
Of course.
It's wonderful. I always love chatting with you, and I'm excited to get to talk a little more with your listeners. So, yeah, I became an interior designer in a little bit of an unusual way. Didn't go to design school. My background was I was more interested in fine art, and even though as a kid I told people I wanted to be an interior designer, I grew up in a very conservative Christian family and community. And I think at the time when I said I wanted to be an interior designer, it was a teacher, and I can't remember which one, said, well, that's what women do, so you should be an architect. And so that sort of planted a seed of, okay, well, I'll explore architecture. And that wasn't quite my thing. And then I got into painting, and that led through a whole creative and spiritual path, I guess, of exploration. When I was living in Chicago, I got to hear the Dalai Lama talk, and I went to hear him and got very into meditation. Ended up becoming a Buddhist monk for a number of years, for about 5.5 years, living in retreat. But I always had a very creative aspect of my being, and I wanted to, after my time as a monk, which was an incredible life-changing time, I wanted to figure out how to integrate what I'd learned and express it creatively. I also felt a real deep connection to nature and to the planet, and that's something that's always been a part of my life. And I wanted to find a way to do something meaningful or beneficial to help others feel more connected to nature and to the planet, because it felt like we wouldn't do the things we do to the planet if we felt more connected to it. And right after my time as a monk, I met my husband, Joe, in Aspen at a talk by the Dalai Lama. We just happened to be sitting next to each other. And he was an established interior designer in Aspen. He'd been designing homes there for many years at that point. But he also had a background of interest in meditation and healing arts. He had gone to massage school. He had lived at the Dalai Lama's monastery and taught English before I was there. And so we had all these overlapping interests, and we were really soulmates. It was meant to be. And so we started, dating and, became partners in life. And then over a few years, we started working together in design as well. After tagging along with him on projects and things, eventually he got a number of projects and needed help, and he's like, well, what do you think about helping me? And I thought, okay, great, let's give it a shot. And that was 12 years ago. So I really learned through working with Joe, as well as just, so much of it is just intuitive and a part of me. There was sort of a natural impulse to design spaces, even from a young age. So it's an unusual path, but I feel so grateful for it.
It's so fascinating. And every time I hear you talk about being a Buddhist monk, I just try to imagine, what would that be like? Because that is such a different lifestyle than what you have now. And of course, it informs what you're doing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But what was that like? What was the difference in how you felt about yourself versus now that you're away from that? What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's something it's really hard to put into words, of course, because it's just such a powerful experience. It's just so different from the way that pretty much all of us live. Right. I felt really lucky. Like most days, I felt like I won the lottery to have the opportunity to fully immerse in nature. For 2.5 years, I was in solitary retreat. So I would go for 6 or 7 months at a time without seeing another human being, including other monks. There were a few of us in little cabins in this remote valley in Big Sur. So we were kind of over a ridge in a valley tucked in near the ocean, but we couldn't see the ocean. And just to have the opportunity to immerse in meditation all day, that connection to nature and to the web of life, you become very sensitive to things when meditating that much. Wasn't exposed to any news about the outside world. I would get letters when I would come out for those breaks, and I would see my teachers and then go back in. And so to have that opportunity to not be distracted by devices and email and news and all that we have to process on a daily basis, that was an amazing opportunity. And when doing that, we become, when anybody meditates, I know you meditate, we've talked about that before. We just naturally become more sensitive because we start to slow down and tune into the present moment, and which is what meditation is. Mindfulness, especially, is being aware of what's arising in the present. And then we start to notice things that we didn't notice before. And they've always been there, but we just didn't tune into it. Our thoughts, our emotions, the breeze, the sensation on our skin, the way we're breathing, the way we're sitting. We start to open and sense in a deeper, richer way. And that's just an incredible opportunity to do, especially in nature, because it opened up this feeling of connection to the web of life. I felt like I was communicating with nature. I would notice that I would have certain prayers or thoughts or intentions that would seem to be reflected in nature around me, in the animals, in the plants, and at times on the non-physical level, when you meditate deeply, you start to have connections on a more subtle level, and where I was really sensitive to the energy of spaces and places, as well as to non-physical beings that have become kind of a part of my reality. I know a part of most world religions or spiritual traditions acknowledge the possibility of life beyond the physical body, and so that was such an interesting thing to learn about and to experience and to feel was real. And so I did, even though I was in solitude, I didn't feel alone. I felt so much more connected than I had ever felt before.
How interesting, because that's something that you would think, I guess some people might assume that you would be lonely because you weren't interacting with people, but this is a whole different level as you're describing. So interesting.
There were moments of loneliness for sure, that would arise when I think about my family, friends, and just with that craving to be around people and to talk to people. But you get used to emotions like that, thoughts like that arising and passing, and coming back to the moment and to the beauty and the present and to the sense of connection that I had there with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that led to your current passion, which we'll talk about? And you might talk about that a little bit and just tell us what it is.
Yeah, it absolutely led to that. There was such just a love for the planet and for nature that arose. It was quite powerful, and also a grieving to think of and see what's happening to the climate and to the biodiversity, to the animals, the plants, as humans expand more and more and kind of consume more of the resources on the planet and more of the habitat. And I just was feeling a sense of loss of our ability to live in harmony with nature, and maybe a loss of our sense of connection to it, which I think is actually what, we're wired to connect to the whole. We're naturally a part of it, and yet we're not taught that. We live in a worldview that's so focused on the physical and the material, and doesn't always acknowledge our energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual selves. And so what became clear as Joe and I started working together was that just as there are those same levels to us, to our being, in the yogic traditions, they talk about the 5 doshas, the 5 levels of our being. There are those levels to a home. And we started to notice that it was really important to address all of those levels if we wanted to create spaces of holistic well-being that didn't just address the material, the physical. We all know what it's like as designers to dive into a project and everything's so focused on, the timeline, the budget, the materials, the construction and the logistics, all of that. And that's all really important. And there's so much more to a home than that in order for it to truly feel like home and for it to be a place of health and wellness and balance and peace, a place that restores us and lifts us up and reflects who we really are. So as we really dove into that, we started to notice that like one of the levels, the energetic level, is really not addressed by the design community or the building community. And it's really important if spaces, even if they're designed beautifully, if they have something energetically out of balance from former occupants, or sometimes there are traumas in a space, sometimes there's a history to a space before humans even got there, to a place, to a piece of land, that's really important to acknowledge rather than just going in and bulldozing and building a house. Those are just examples. There are dozens and dozens of things that can be out of balance in a space. Like, for example, somebody living there with depression for many years in a particular room or part of a home or the whole home. It can feel sad the minute you walk in the door. It can feel heavy, but we're not taught to notice that and to acknowledge that that's not us. And so, but when a bunch of people are taught to observe how they feel when walking into a space and then stepping back out, you can feel that contrast. It's like, oh, out here I feel lighter, I feel happier. I walk in here, I feel heavy, I feel sad. That's interesting. And if everyone notices the same thing, which we do with our clients without even saying what we're observing until afterwards, everyone can do this. Everybody has this ability to feel the energy in spaces. And then it gives people the recognition that, oh, there's something here that's not me. If the space feels sad, it's not something wrong with me. There's something going on in this space, and what can we do about that? And there are ancient, it's an ancient science and art of clearing and balancing the energy of spaces. It's been done by traditions all over the world. And we just don't have a living practice of that, of our own in this culture, but we can go back to the ancient practices and they really work. It's amazing. It's like night and day shift when the energy is cleared and balanced in a space. It doesn't have to feel sad. And then we can fill it with whatever positive emotions, whatever intentions we have for the space. So that's just an example of one level of a home that we find is often ignored. And it's quite unfortunate because to live in a space that's energetically imbalanced can lead to physical and emotional and mental imbalances in the people in that space. And when they can start to believe it's them and take it on personally. Yeah.
I know this seems like woo-woo for a lot of people that are listening, which is totally fine. But, and I think I'm a pretty grounded person, but I've had 3 experiences that I can relate to. And one is, and I can't remember if you were part of our collective at that time, but we were in Rhode Island and I could feel the energy of ancestors there, which I thought was really quite interesting. And I do have ancestors in Rhode Island, which I found through some searches in Ancestry.com. And I thought, well, that's really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And then another time I was at a spiritual retreat, and there was a guy in the room sitting behind me that got really angry. And the teacher finally confronted him because he was not following the rules for this retreat. And there was no alcohol, no drugs, no nothing. And he had told someone that he had been smoking weed in the evenings, which was not okay if you're there for a meditation retreat. So he got really angry, and she made him leave. And she literally said, do not sit in that chair. And I could feel the anger even after he left. And I thought, wow, that is the craziest thing. And I'd never really, really thought about that. But I mean, that was another example of, you're right. If you're aware, you can be very intuitive to the space, and you don't necessarily realize that. And even, I shouldn't probably say this, but I'll just say a friend went through a very ugly divorce, and she was thinking about buying the house from her ex. And I said, no, you can't. The energy is terrible in that house. You cannot do it. And I just think you should let it go. Let him have it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's really, I mean, there are big decisions around homes and spaces, and it could be a huge impact to be in a space that isn't energetically or symbolically uplifting for us. The symbolic or is kind of, we talk about the emotional level, and that's where symbology, meaning comes in. That's, we kind of break it down into these 5 levels, and that's one of the levels that a lot of designers do acknowledge. It's like we design a home and we think about what's meaningful to the client, and we really try to bring that into the design. If a space has a negative reference or memory to a client, if they're not able to shift that, then it might always trigger that emotion just being there, no matter how beautiful the space is. And so we found that energetically, no matter how much you remodel or redesign, if the energetics of the space and the land, not all need it. No, I'm not saying that every space needs this, but there are quite a few that do. And if it's not acknowledged, then it could maybe just not feel right. It might not feel as welcoming, as inviting, as peaceful as it could. And so we really start at what we talk about the top level being the spiritual or the sacred. And that's something that means something different to everyone. We don't have any preset idea of what that means, but I think everyone has a sense of the sacred in their life. What that is, it might be family, it might be their ancestors, their loved ones, certain traditions, certain gatherings, certain ways of being. But for a lot of people, there is a spiritual level to their life that is really important to acknowledge at the outset of a project, because a home can hold that energy, can hold that intention, and if it's designed around what's sacred for a person or a family, we can bring that into all the other layers. And at the very least, what I recommend for designers, who may not feel comfortable talking about these things, is to at least slow down enough, just even if it's like a half an hour with the clients. We ideally have at least an hour or a couple hours, if it works out, depending on the client's availability and openness, to walk the land, their property, to actually be outside the home rather than just starting right off the bat inside. If it's a remodel or if it's a new build, like walking the land, walking the perimeter, noticing all the details, the trees, the rocks, the plants, connecting with the place, noticing how it feels. A lot of architects do this, but acknowledging kind of the more subtle feeling level and opening to the ideas that come in. And then just taking a little bit of time to explore the client's intention for the project, because intention is the foundation of everything in life, right? And a lot of times we're not fully conscious of our intentions when going into something. And a home remodel or build is an enormous project. We all know what an undertaking it is, what it can bring up for everyone, what a process. It's a huge investment. To get clear about what the intention is before going into that, sometimes a married couple might not have even talked about that openly and been facilitated and just inquiring into that and sharing what they see for the future of themselves, their kids, their family, future generations. A lot of times we think so short term, and the build and design of a home, ideally we're creating something to last for years or for generations. And so helping people think bigger, as well as to think about like what is their happy place. What we talk about their wellness vision, and we actually do kind of a guided meditation or journey where they are able to shift out of their mental, rational, timeline, budget, resale value, that brain, and which is important, but to drop out of that into the heart and to go, what do I care about? What do I love? What makes me so happy in life? What's my personal vision of wellness? Because the more that we're given permission to explore that at the beginning of a design project, the more we have the opportunity to bring that into all the other levels of the home. That can inform the energetics so that we can fill the space with that positive energy of all those emotions that they mention, their values, their key words, the things that they want to live around. We can fill the space with that energy. And then we can move from there into the what we call the symbolic or meaningful level or emotional level, thinking about what imagery is really important, what symbolism, what art, what objects are really meaningful that bring about this vision and hold it, rather than just going, I need to keep this beautiful cabinet because my grandma gave it to me and it's meaningful, but does it really make you feel good? Does it really uplift you? So tuning into that. And then from there, we get into the sensory, which is the aesthetic and how we design, color palettes and the materials around this vision that we're creating. And then from there into the functional, because, designing floor plans and spaces around what's the highest, best use or purpose of this space, not just what everybody else does or what's happened to be on the architect's drawings or the way the space is currently configured. And so it's sort of going from the top down rather than from the bottom up. And we find that just even taking a few minutes at the beginning, if designers could just breathe at the beginning and slow down for a minute to connect with the clients, it's amazing what can come out of that and that can ripple through a project.
So talk to me a little bit about what some of the clients have said that you've had this opportunity to address their energy in their homes. What has happened as a result of this?
Yeah, we had a recent experience with a client, a large home in Aspen, it's probably one of the biggest budget projects we've had, and they, the email after this work, the husband wasn't quite as involved in it. It wasn't his thing, and sometimes that's the case, sometimes not. But he supported it for his wife because he could tell it was meaningful to her that there were parts of the home that didn't feel right to her, that she was aware of and we were aware of, but it wasn't something that he was as tuned into, or but he wanted this for her. And so we went through the process of working with the energy of those spaces. And a lot of times it might only be part of a home. It's not like the whole home. There might be something blocked or something stuck or out of balance in one part of the home. And so we did that process, and we always kind of work from the outside in, from the land, the yard, the environment outward in, and connecting with the intention and what's sacred for that person. And it was really beautiful to see how impacted she was by this process and by the experience. She wrote back just saying, I feel like I'm living in heaven on earth. I feel like I'm living in my dream home, that you acknowledge not just what's beautiful and didn't just design around what's beautiful, but what's really meaningful and sacred for us and purposeful. And she really felt that and got that. And it was just really special to get to share that with her, as well as to notice how she felt a lot more connected to that home, which was a new home for them. She felt more connected to the land and to the animals and to the plants and to the trees. And so that's really part of our vision for this. It kind of goes back to my time as a monk and the times in retreat. I still go on retreat quite regularly and study with various teachers, and as well as indigenous healers and teachers who carry that wisdom of living in this acknowledgement that there's the sacred, there's spirit or life within everything and everyone. So it's really about, within people's home, giving them an opportunity to open to that view, that experience of that sacred worldview, and feeling connected to nature and to the planet in our home, which it feels really important and timely because we spend so much of our time indoors. First of all, they say we spend over 90% of our time indoors now, and the vast majority of that is at home. And if we're going to connect to the planet and to the whole, and we can't do that at home, where and how are we going to do that? I think a lot of people go to, a lot of our clients who we work with, because we really, with Home Within, which is a branch of Joe McGuire Design, and where we really dive into this process, we focus on wellness design. We talk a lot about wellness and that wellness vision, which ripples into a lot of times healthier choices for the family on a lot of levels. And then a lot of times those healthier choices are healthier for the planet, even though that may or may not have been their initial intention. Tuning into not bringing toxins into their space is actually, that's a good thing for the community and the planet as a whole. And so anyway, we work with our clients in this way through Home Within, and we see it as this opportunity for people to connect in a deeper way in their home, rather than having to go on a big retreat or to just have this experience. Like, people go to high-end wellness resorts and have these amazing experiences of community and connection to nature and living holistically, and having their green juice in the morning and going to yoga, and then and a lot of people come back from that and go, why can't I live that way all the time?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think people can.
Well, yes, and I think, essentially, as we have a more complex world, complex issues that we're dealing with, both in life and in business and all the other aspects of our lives, we have to have some place where we can feel centered and alive and safe. All of those things are important emotions. So I would imagine that all of those things are things that you're sharing when you're talking about Home Within with your clients.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Safety is a key one for people that comes up again and again when people tune into what they're looking for and wanting in a home. And that's, it just makes sense at this time in the world with so much change and imbalance. People are looking for a refuge, for a safe place, a place of comfort and well-being. And yeah, I think with that intention, it just makes sense to think a little bit more beyond just the functional and the aesthetic aspects of spaces. Even those are so important. I think there are other layers that we can bring in to make a space really feel nurturing and like home.
Well, and I think for you as a business person, I know that's not your first maybe identity for yourself, but when you think about what you're doing, it allows you to differentiate your services from probably 99% of the design firms out there. And that is an advantage. But the other thing that's really interesting about that is that it's so rooted in who you are. It's very authentic to you, your brand, what you're trying to accomplish. And I can imagine that this is going to be, it seems to be your life work now of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And you have opened up a space next to your current studio. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So earlier this year, a space opened up. We have kind of the top floor of a building in North Boulder near our home here. And we had sort of 2/3 of it, and the other third was being used by a nonprofit that does work on sustainability. We loved having them there, and they moved into another kind of co-working space, and this space opened up, and it's just a beautiful open space that previously, some years ago had been a meditation center. It's perfect for meditation, yoga. It has views of the hills, and so we were so excited to get to take that space on. And our intention for the space and what we've been using it for is as our wellness space. So it's a space not just for our team and for them to have a space to go it does not feel officey at all. There's a lounge kind of sitting area with comfortable, sustainable furniture, like healthy, sustainable furniture. So it's an opportunity to show some of those things, and for our team to get to hang out comfortably if they just need a break. in between things to do some stretches on a yoga mat, but also it's a space where we can have events with our team that don't feel businessy, where we're not at a conference table and in front of a screen. Like we're having a sound bath there next week on a weekday morning for our team. That was one of the things we surveyed our team, what things they'd like to use the wellness space more, and sound baths were like the highest rated because it's just so relaxing. I don't know if you've ever done one. Have you gone to one?
I have, yeah. It is. It's really interesting, and you don't think about it because we are energy. So
Yes.
that vibrations that you feel from that, and I know that certainly with mantras and a lot of the meditation techniques, you're using sound in order to connect, and I think it's pretty fascinating going through that.
It is. I think that's going to be great. So we're using it for that, but it's also a place for us to hold events for the community. So I teach meditation there occasionally. I've taught workshops on space clearing, kind of introductory level space clearing that can be really helpful to learn. It's just sort of like a half-day workshop. And then we're going to be teaching a lot more, sharing things around the home within process for people who might want to be guided through that process and how to apply that to their own space or home, regardless of whether they own the home or not, whether it's a, large, expensive home or whether it's a little apartment in the city. We can all learn how to bring these levels of wellness into our space and how to nurture those in the space so that then the space nurtures all of those within us. And so we're doing a number of different community events. It's also a space where we focus on the rainforest preservation work that we've become really active in, which is kind of a side project. But, I was just thinking this morning, Gail, how when we first started working with you, Joe and I, in our firm was quite a bit smaller. We were, we'd been going through the roller coaster of just the ups and downs in business, and it was quite stressful. And you really helped us with so much of that, all of that. I mean, we're in a totally different place than where we were, and we've learned so much. But one of the things that was so interesting when we first started working together was how you talked about some of your clients who you'd worked with for years, and how they were at this place now where they were thinking about philanthropy. What are they going to do for their community? How are they going to give back? What are they going to do for the world? And you mentioned a number of examples of your clients and really cool things, organizations in their community or around the world that they've gotten involved in to give back. And I remember at the time just feeling like, oh my gosh, that feels like so far from where we are. We're just in survival mode. We're just trying to keep the doors open and keep up with all the projects and all the clients and all the stuff. And we're in such a different place now, and to be able to, for a while through Home Within, we're giving back through that work, but wanting to share it more with the community so that it's not just for people who can afford to hire an interior designer, which is, it's a smaller group of people. We want to make it more widely available for anybody to learn how to do. But then the philanthropic part of this is that we've become aware of just, as we tune into healthier and sustainable processes in our business, which is an ongoing and, really challenging endeavor, and yet really rewarding. We've made progress and we've got a lot more to do, but just to realize that we want to give back to the planet. And one of the things that we've really found is really important for us is preserving the indigenous wisdom on the planet. We've benefited so much from that in our own lives. Joe and I both have really experienced the gifts of learning from indigenous peoples about how they see nature and feel connected to nature, don't feel separate from it. And so we're working with some communities in the rainforest some of this is just evolving even very recently, and where I'm going to be going down there, it looks like in November, to meet with a specific community. But we've already preserved like over 250 acres of rainforest land, and our goal is much bigger than that. But to work with a specific community that is living in harmony with their land and wants help in preserving it, because there are all these challenges to that when they're so poor and don't have the ability to resist the mining companies and the logging companies and the government that wants to come in and do stuff to their sacred and ancestral land. And so so that's something that we are getting to do now that I couldn't imagine years ago. And through building a business that's stable, that has systems and processes, where you've helped us so much in learning how to lead and be better communicators. And of course, we're always learning with that. And I feel like we've really gotten to a different place where Joe and I are able to be more ourselves in what we're doing and bring this greater purpose into it.
It's so interesting that you bring this up about the other clients, because you started working with me in 2018, I believe it was June. Much different situation then.
Yes.
I remember a few tears in the session from both you and Joe and all those things. And a lot of my clients start with tears, and because we get down to the heart of what's important to them. And we want to build the business holistically too, because this is not about just business. It's really about who you are and how you show up in the world and how you show up as a leader. And we actually say in our boardroom group that it's beyond business, because when you get to the beyond business, you're starting to self-actualize into your business so that you can give back and that you can get that extra benefit of being that generous person, that generous heart that you bring to the world can be shown through your business and the way that you approach things, the way you approach your clients and your team. And as you start understanding the connection between the spiritual level and all of these pieces of your life that really impact other people, you realize. And I think it's one of the gifts of what I get to do is the ripple effect of what our programs allow people to do is to go and help other people. So like you doing what you're doing, or like Cheryl Stauffer, who's doing Asia's Hope, so building schools for kids in Asia. Or, we have so many of our clients that are doing so many incredible things for global purposes and also for their local communities. And to me, that is the ultimate expression of a successful business, is when you're able to bring that level of, as you say, consciousness into what you are producing, because the result of what you do is not just financial. You have to have financial success in order to be able to do this, right? So without that financial success, you cannot give back because you don't have enough. So you have to get beyond that feeling of not enough to abundance. And when you get to abundance, then there is so much more to give, and you get so much more in return. So, this is a deep conversation in many ways, because when you think about it, a lot of people just think that business is business, and it's not. It's way, way deeper than that.
Yeah, I think owning a business is one of the most potent paths of personal transformation that's
Like
out
it or
there.
not.
Yeah, it can be, right?
Yeah.
If not, it might be more difficult. For us, when we,
Right.
the obstacles that we've encountered in our business as business owners and leaders, it always traces back to us. It always traces back to stuff within ourselves that we're needing to see and heal and acknowledge and grow around and shift out of. So many of our own limiting beliefs have been revealed in the process of our business.
I think it's really important to understand that we are not alone. We may feel alone sometimes, but we're not alone. And we have such an impact on other people, whether we realize it or not. And you bring up something that I think is so crucial for people to understand, that who you are when you show up for work, who you are when you show up at home, who you are when you show up as a friend, it all starts from within. And whatever we put out into the world is either positive or negative energy. And that positive or negative energy is going to bring more of that back.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling that you don't have enough, that you are poor in whatever way you feel poor, then that is sensed by other people. They know that. They feel that. And for those of you who are struggling with your business and really needing to have more business, there is an element that you need to look at for yourself of how are you showing up? Because how you show up is powerful. It's so powerful that people do not realize that the impact is way beyond just what the thoughts in their brain. It is way beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the research around it scientifically even demonstrates, one of the types of meditation that I love to teach comes from the Heart Math Institute, and they've been around for decades doing research on the energy field of the heart and the power of coherence, getting our brain and heart in coherence. And so it's just about breathing in and out through your heart center, and a little more slowly, a little more deeply than you normally do. And you start to drop into what they call a parasympathetic nervous system, where it's the relaxation response. It's so good for your health and well-being on so many levels, for mental clarity, for physical energy and stamina. I mean, it's really how we recharge. The body recharges by going into the relaxation response. And we can't do that if we're always wired and stressed and, go, in the kind of fight or flight mode. And so, but one of the things that they talk about and that the research is so clear about is that the electromagnetic field of our heart is the largest magnetic field in our body, it much larger than the electromagnetic field of our brain. The heartbeat sends out this electromagnetic field that can be felt up to 10 feet away, and they think even further, but the studies show at least 10 feet away. And it's the way that your heart is beating, sends the signal out about how you're feeling. It broadcasts your emotions to everyone around you. And I know we've all experienced that, where we can just tell how somebody's feeling, whether they might have a smile on their face, but you can tell. Well, like they've done studies, this institute and others, where they have somebody sitting with their back to the door, and then they have them wired to detect the response of their nervous system. And then they have someone walk in the room, and they have that person generate a lot of anger first, kind of like what you felt in that retreat you're at. And that person they can't even see the person. They have no idea that person is going to be angry. They might hear them come in the room behind them, but their whole body responds to that person's anger immediately when that person walks in the room. And they respond differently if that person has generated more positive emotions. Their body feels it. Their heart actually is what feels it. And so our hearts are connected, and just electromagnetically, like we sense and can feel what's going on in other people's hearts, if they're contracted and worried, or if they're open and expansive and sending out positive emotion. So on that level, it absolutely affects everyone around us. It affects our family, our team, our coworkers who we spend so much time with.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's not too much of a stretch to imagine that, in a world where everything is made of energy, it looks so solid and physical, but we know these are all, atoms with electrons and protons, and it's spinning, moving energy. And that if the electromagnetic field of the heart broadcasts emotion, that could impact, the field of energy in a space over time. I certainly have found that to be true. And the good thing is that we can shift that. We can actually create spaces. Spaces are sort of like little batteries, that we can fill with positive energy, just like our bodies are energy fields that we can fill with positive energy. And then we have more to run on, like we can recharge through positive emotion, through gratitude and love and positive emotions. That's how we recharge. And spaces are the same way, by filling spaces with positive energy. Like I have a crystal behind me. I love crystals because as much as they may be seen as kind of symbolic of, new age or whatever, crystals actually do hold energy very effectively. The atomic structure, the molecular structure of crystals holds energy. And, if you pick up a crystal in a shop, one will feel different from another. And if you pay attention to how it feels, and you can clear that energy with your intention and love, positive energy, you can clear it and fill it with positive energy or whatever emotion you want that crystal to radiate. And then it will actually radiate that in a space. Crystals are something that we can, beyond just being beautiful and something that can remind us of something, they actually can hold and vibrate energy in a space. And so, so I think, this is all connected, and that what you're saying about, being that change that we want to see, that statement, being that in our business, is such a really important insight.
Yeah, and I was saying this to one of my coaching clients today. I said, when things are not going well in your business, then the first question you should ask yourself is, what am I contributing to that not working the way I would like to see it? And when you can ask that really hard question and be really honest about it, you'll usually find that there is something, and it's probably energetic, about how you're feeling about something or what you're thinking about something is not the most supportive of what it is you're trying to accomplish. So for those people who are struggling to get the right kind of clients that they want to have in the business, then they're probably not aligned with what it is that other person wants. And so their wants and the other person's desires and wants are not aligned, and that's not going to work for them. So it's really important to think about that. And if you're not getting the kind of results that you want from your employees, what are you contributing to that? How are you showing up to that conversation? How are you helping to guide that person to let go of whatever those negative thoughts are that they have that's keeping them from being a very productive member of your team? Because everyone has things happening, and we often don't know what's in the background. So these are all things to think about. And you and I could sit here and talk for hours about this stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I would say is, my gosh, if you haven't ever meditated, I have been to a few meditation retreats, and I would like to go to more. And I think that what I learned through 10 years of meditation now is how critically important it is to stop thinking about the real world that we see, and that's what we call real. But the real world is really what's up here. So if we can remember that, if we can separate enough that we can just feel who we are and feel where we are, we can make some huge shifts in our lives.
Yes.
And I would say, even at my, senior age, that I really feel like the older I get, I'm not going to say the smarter, but I'm becoming more aware of what it is that I can do to shift where I am. And I think we all have that opportunity. So we can either choose to stay in a negative space, or we can choose to shift our thoughts into a more positive place in our mental and physical and emotional being.
Absolutely.
So anyway, those are just a couple of thoughts that you triggered.
I love that, Gail. Yeah, I absolutely, I experienced that. I think we all have had those days where you just, wake up in a bad mood, or where you're stressed and you're just rushing. And that's, of course, when you spill your coffee on yourself, or you pinch your finger, or, you do the things that make things even worse when you're in that out of alignment and flow state, And so how do we shift back? For me, meditation has been essential for that. I think for most people, and what I've found through the heart math approach, this is just one type of meditation, but it seems to work for a lot of people. It's very effective at just dropping out of the head into the heart and just breathing a little more deeply in. Imagine you're breathing in and out through your heart. Just doing that for like 30 seconds will literally change your state of being.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have 30 seconds in the day to shift if we want to, and to think of something we're grateful for. We can add that to just breathe in and receive that gratitude and send it out in and out from our heart. It's so powerful. We actually start our Monday team meetings with a 3-minute meditation. Sometimes I guide it, and sometimes, we've all meditated at this point a lot, and sometimes I don't. But we all choose our focus for the meditation. And it's just wonderful to come in, on a busy Monday. Mondays are always busy. There's that energy to Monday. But to show up at the office first thing in the morning, we're all sitting around the table, and we can allow ourselves just to breathe and to arrive, to just listen to the sound in the room, just to breathe in and out through our heart, think of something we're grateful for. It's amazing how that shifts the energy in the team from just like go, 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 and already thinking about all the things that are, that we need to do or that may not be going well, that we need to solve. And so that's really helpful. And then after that, we go around and everybody says something they're grateful for. If people are not feeling it, they can pass, but pretty much always, even if people are going through a rough time, they can think of something that they're thankful for in their life. And it's so cool to hear what each other's thankful for. We learn so much about each other's personal lives. What we did over the weekend is often a topic of time with family or friends or in nature or with pets, and it's just, it's a way to bring more love and care into the field before we start talking about what we're going to do for the week. And so that's really helpful. But, I think starting our day with that, just even for a few minutes on our own, mm-hmm. I still meditate every day. I mean, there's rare days where I miss it, but then I notice it later and go, oh my gosh, okay, I'll find a time later today to do it.
Well, yeah, and I do TM, which is specific to, you're supposed to do it twice a day, in the morning, yeah, in the afternoon. The reason you do the afternoon is because you're clearing whatever happened during the day, so that you can go into your evening with more awareness and maybe presence in what's going on. So, okay, so let's take one of those as one of your takeaways, which is to meditate. I think that's a good idea. And how about 2 other quick ones as we wrap up this podcast?
I would say thinking about how we impact our lives through our own state of being, that it's a reflection of us, of our state of being. It's really, reality is like a mirror, and it's constantly reflecting our own state of being. And our business is the same, as well as our family life, our personal life, that I think meditation is a great first step. And then from there, dropping into who do I want to be, and really breathing that in and out and being that, allowing ourselves to start to be who we really are, that will change everything. It changes everything. And of course we forget and we drop in and out of it, and we start to notice the beliefs that we've had, that we've accumulated over life that tell us we need to be someone else, or, do something else than what's natural or authentic for us. But then we can look into those beliefs and come back to who we are. So I think that's really a powerful next step. And then what I would think beyond that is just how our intention affects everything, our business, our personal life, and just our projects. And so finding ways, just even a simple way with clients, to clarify the intention for the project, to clarify the real meaning and purpose and value. It's such a key, it's such a key to everything on the project, to go back to that again and again as a touchstone is such a powerful and meaningful thing to do, and to hold space for a client as they go through really one of the most significant things in their life is changing a home, remodeling, rebuilding, moving. It's huge. And so they have it's an opportunity for them to think about, who do they want to be? Because, remodeling a home in a way is sort of an identity shift for people. It's an opportunity for them to think about, who do they want to be? And how do we create spaces that reflect who they want to be, not just who they are.
I love that. Well, with that, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast again. And you never know, we'll have to do another one, but I look forward to seeing you on Monday.
I look forward to it too. And happy birthday today.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind.
I hope you have a
All
wonderful.
right. Well, give my best to your team and to Joe, and I will talk to you all on Monday.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you, Matthew, for joining Gail on the podcast to discuss an aspect of design that is usually overlooked. Be sure to share this episode with a friend if you think it will resonate with them.